Okay, here's record.
Oh.
Yeah. Alright, hello! This is my first video in way too freaking long. My last actual video was like 3 years ago and it was just me drawing on my iPad. But yeah, I'm actually going to try to put effort into this channel now because my lovely boyfriend here has inspired me to actually make content because I have a channel and I would like to start making content. Alright, so my first piece of content is going to be a sort of retrospective of sorts of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just finished showing him the show, and I want to get mainly his thoughts, but first we're just going to go over it for those of you living under a rock. If you've never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, long ago the four nations lived together in harmony, but then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, can stop them, but when the world needed him most, he vanished. Then two siblings, Katara and Sokka, find the new Avatar named Aang, and while his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's going to save anyone, but Katara believes that Aang will save the world. And it's considered one of the greatest animated series of all time. It has a lot of very engaging characters, a lot of engaging themes, and the setting is very, very fleshed out, and it's just an all-around awesome series. I really enjoyed it. I didn't watch it much as a kid. I watched it in high school because I was a Cartoon Network kid. I wasn't a Nickelodeon kid. I didn't watch it when it was airing. But I did watch it after the fact when Legend of Korra came out, and I was really hyped about that because I had just finished watching Avatar with my neighbor, and so I was like, this actually is a really awesome show. But now, let's go to Rob and see what he thinks.
Right, so I hadn't really lived under a rock. My history with Avatar is that by the time that show started airing, I was kind of getting out of watching TV. Like, I got a computer. Once you get the internet, it's like, what is cable anymore, right? But I had always heard that the show was really good, and everyone that I mentioned it to, I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. They're like, oh my god, it's one of the greatest shows ever made. It is the GOAT. And we had watched Teen Titans before, and you were like, oh, Teen Titans is like fantastic. And I thought Teen Titans was pretty great for when it came out. But there were issues. The show felt like it wasn't able to be more than just the time it came out and sort of the censorship and that sort of thing.
For sure.
Destroy me, quick! What?
But Avatar feels like it has removed those shackles and it is able to tell its story the way that it wants to tell it. It doesn't feel like it's holding back its punches. It talks about death and genocide and killing. They use the word kill and death and die, and they're not afraid to shy away from these things. And because of that, it's able to take on a very mature feel and be a show that I think pretty much anyone can enjoy. It doesn't talk down to its audience. It almost feels like something that was well ahead of its time for when it came out, because there was like serialized stuff on TV, but not for kids' cartoons. It was like always episodic. You did have some stuff, like I said, with Teen Titans, but primarily it was everything resets at the end of the episode. But this was a story that not only didn't reset at the end of every episode, but it continued for 3 full seasons. It was able to keep this narrative from collapsing under the weight of itself. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Everything is so excellently paced, and the main characters are great. Everyone has their time to shine. Everyone has their pitfalls. No one feels like they're that one character that is better than everyone else. Everyone has a very unique and important role to play in the group. Even Sokka, who doesn't have any bending skills, they still take time to show that he is important. He comes up with the plans and he wants to go out there and improve himself. And even at the very beginning, when he's like totally super, like the most immature, basic form of his character, he is the lone male warrior in his entire village and is still like there to defend the whole village against this giant metal warship, against these people that could just fry him in an instant. And with no hesitation, he goes out there and does that, and that's his strength. You have Aang, who has so much responsibility put on his shoulders, and the whole world wants this kid who was still very immature when he disappeared, because he was running away because they were going to take him away from his friends. It's just so much pressure to put on this kid, but you see him grow up and mature. This is like a coming of age story. It's accepting that responsibility and the whole show is him learning and by proxy teaching the audience to not run away from your responsibilities, because eventually they're going to catch up with you and it might be too much to handle. Seeing him learn all of his bending abilities and see him shy away from certain abilities because he's hurt people, because he is a pacifist, he is the Airbender, the last one. Seeing that factor into the show was really interesting. Seeing him try to work his way into the Avatar state, the way that certain episodes are set up, the whole arc with Appa going away and disappearing, like, that was really interesting. I can't really think. There was like maybe one episode where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, which was the beach episode. I know you like it, and I understand what its purpose was. Like, outside of just showing like, oh, the Fire Nations, they're no different than anyone. But they already kind of do that with Aang going to school. So having this one with like all the teenagers, my biggest issue is that it brings Azula down a peg, but not in a way that felt like her. It was like, oh, haha, she can't talk to boys. And it's like, she's a crazy murderous psychopath. And I know the contrast is that she's a crazy murderous psychopath. And her big hang up is she can't talk to guys or relate to people. But they don't do it in a way that it feels like the whole story stops to like focus on this thing that has nothing to do with anything. I was kind of hoping for them to show her weakness, which they do. They show her paranoia towards the end where she starts killing. Everybody gets exiled. Showing her weakness in that way and not in a way that felt very belittling and weird and off tone for that character. But that's like one minor thing, and everything else was just so well done. It feels like the Clone Wars a little bit, where they show that even the good guys can take things too far. You have characters like Jet and their freedom fighters, where he's just so blinded by his rage that he's willing to kill innocent people too, because his village got destroyed. And seeing him, struggle with that, having the Sokka and... No, it wasn't Sokka. Sokka was the one that saw through his BS. It was Aang and... Oh god, I'm forgetting... The girl, her name starts with a K, right?
Katara?
Katara, right. Sorry. Having them have to deal with the fact that just because they're not bad doesn't mean they're good. I liked seeing Aang having to step up and be the mediator in a lot of situations. Even though you said a lot of people didn't like this episode, I really like the episode where there's the two groups of people and they have to go through the canyon and they hate each other over some misunderstanding. And then Aang comes up with this big story about how it was about a ball game, and then he's like, oh yeah, I just made it up. And I was like, you know what? It works. I think, not that the episode was bad, but that definitely made it really good. It stood out. I mean, I'm still talking about it, because it's just kind of like sometimes you just have to tell a little white lie to bring everyone together, because they don't remember why they were fighting. Nobody knows. So why not just make up something about, hey, don't fight because it actually wasn't what you thought it was.
Yeah.
The world building was very good.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can tell this was something that, I don't know how long they had been working on it before they started, but this feels like a show where every detail was planned out from the start.
Yeah, all the nations are based off of real life cultures. The Water Tribe is obviously based on the Inuit and the Arctic indigenous tribes. The Air Nomads are obviously based on the people of the Tibetan Plateau and the Buddhists there, and that informs a lot of the culture. The Earth Kingdom was largely based on different eras of China, the different regions of the Earth Kingdom. There's some that are more based on Korea, like you see one girl is wearing a hanbok. Her name was Song. And then the Fire Nation is based off of Imperial Japan. I think that's kind of where another issue that you had was that the Fire Nation's motivations to why they started the war.
Yeah, that everything else was so well built up and done, and everyone's motivations were really interesting. And it's like the Fire Nation's just like, so we decided to take over the world because I decided to do it. It's like, we're like super cool and everything, so we're gonna make everyone else just as cool. It's like, well, why now? Why didn't the other Fire Lords try to do this?
Yeah, it's because of the Industrial Revolution that...
But they don't go into that. They don't show that part of it. They're just like... If they had spent more time on that, then I would have been like, yeah, I mean, I get it. But it's also still...
Yeah.
Is it just a mask? Like, do they just want to take over the world and they're just using, we can make everyone better as a mask? Or did it actually start out as legitimately wanting to help people, then it got twisted over time? that would have been really cool to see how the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
And so the Fire Nation could have been a story of that, where they just got twisted over time because of all the power that they had. I think that might have been a little bit better. Everything else in the show is so well done, and the climax is so well done that it counterbalances that. But it's like one little thing where it's like, you could have maybe come up with something a little bit more than we're evil because we're evil. Because, well, we've got to help everyone. Like, think about how many villains have done that. Like, oh, I'm doing this for the good of everybody. A character that is like that I think was really well done, that was done somewhat recently, was Thanos, who was like, oh, I have to destroy half the universe so that everyone will have enough resources. And he had already gone on this crusade and was like, hey, I went to these planets, killed half the people, and now they're thriving. Even though it's the wrong thing to do, his confirmation bias in his mind is like, oh, this is the right thing to do, even though it's not. Maybe having the Fire Nation start to seep out and helping these villages. They were hurting and now they're better because we went down there and helped them. And so that is giving us the green light to take over the rest of the world. They fully believe what they're doing at first, but then it gets twisted over time, and now they're just like, no, we're gonna raise the entire Earth, we're gonna level everything, we're gonna rebuild it in our image. But you could see it as sort of an imperialism thing or a colonialism thing, where a lot of European countries went down to Africa and they were like, oh, look at these savages living in the dirt, we can make them better, we'll civilize them. Mm-hmm. But they probably just didn't have time to go into all of that. So even the whole inciting incident or basis for the show, the antagonist, is a little weak. But, without adding a whole new season to it, I don't know if 4 seasons would have overstayed its welcome. I think it did really good with just the 3. Because he's learning the elements that he doesn't already know.
Yeah, it's about Aang. It's not about how the war started. It's about the war's already here. Now we gotta finish it.
It also does an interesting thing where you take characters that are seemingly irredeemable, like Zuko or his father, his uncle Iroh, yeah. His uncle Iroh. It's like Iroh. It's like, how do you feel about Iroh at the beginning, right? It's like this guy. He's a bad guy, but that doesn't make him a bad guy, right? So how do you redeem that? That. I think that was an interesting concept for me, or as someone is watching it. Do you like General Iroh? He's chill. He's laid back. He's not aggressive. Obviously, he's been kind of neutered because of the death of his son, and I think that has sent him on a new path. Yeah. What are we fighting for? And obviously using Zuko as a surrogate son, mm-hmm. and trying to redeem himself by trying to redeem Zuko, by trying to send Zuko on a path that won't lead to his destruction. Of course, Zuko makes the poor decision to go with his sister, which is really interesting. I was like, well, I was waiting for him to be like, I got you, Azula. I tricked you, and now I was pretending to be on your side, but now I'm not. No, he doesn't do that, and that has given me hope. Yeah, it has given me hope for another thing that I partake in, that maybe it can end well, given it's written well enough. How do you take a character that has done something irredeemably stupid and bad and make them change for the better?
You do it by giving the character what he thinks he wants, and then he finds out that he's actually really unhappy with it.
But now I know. So if anything, Avatar has given me peace of mind. Yeah. And just the bending effects, the animation's really good, the fighting, the choreography, the music's pretty great.
Yeah, the bending styles are also based in real life stuff. Airbending is based on Bagua Zhang, which is also known as circle walking. Earthbending is based off of Hung Gar, which is very rooted, very rigid movements. Firebending is based off of Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. Just very flashy movements, and waterbending is based off of Tai Chi, very fluid movements. And Toph has a very unique style of earthbending that in the real world is known as Southern Praying Mantis or Chowgar. And the legend has it, I have not heard a source for this other than the producers, but the legend has it that apparently that style was developed by a blind woman.
The show reminds me just structurally of Gravity Falls, where it's a show that was definitely planned out from the beginning. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. This one is more intricate than that, but it's also been a while since I watched Gravity Falls. But you don't really often get a kids show where they have a finite story, because usually they just run this stuff into the ground. Think about how long SpongeBob has been going on.
Oh my god.
Think about how long Simpsons or Family Guy or Fairly Odd Parents, which I think may or may not have just
They've
ended.
canceled and uncanceled that show like 10
Yeah.
times. It's ridiculous.
But this show, it was really great, and then they were like, all right, that's it. I mean, well, until The Legend of Korra happens, but like for a long time, that was it. And to show that amount of restraint, especially on Nickelodeon's part, to not kind of demand you do more seasons. Like, I don't know what the business side behind everything was. I don't know if when they did the contracts, they were like, we're going to do 3 seasons, that's it, no more, we're not going to come back, and you're not going to be allowed to make any more of this, which I don't foresee Nickelodeon signing off on something like that, because that's really dumb.
That's what they did with Legend of Korra, is they were just like, hey, this mini-series that you guys are doing are really good, can you make more of it? And they're like, oh, we only plan a plot for 1 season, but we'll do our damnedest. And then they kind of...
So to show the amount of restraint for something that's so beloved, that is still so beloved, which I know they just released the Avatar show on Netflix, which is released to mixed to negative reviews.
I saw the first 2 episodes, it's...
These stories that are designed from the ground up for animation work in that medium and don't necessarily translate well to live action. The elephant in the room being the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's last Airbender movie. I hadn't seen the show when I saw that movie. I pirated it online several years ago, and I had never seen the show, but I could tell that this was not a very good adaptation. It was not a good movie. And after seeing the show, I'm like, wow, they had an intern watch the show, write down some spark notes, and give it to Shyamalan, and he's like, all right, we're going to do this. Or maybe Nickelodeon went back, they looked at the highest rated episodes, and they're like, all right, we're going to adapt these things.
Yeah.
But you can't adapt this story with so many moving parts and intricacies into an hour and a half. Like, even like a 3-hour long movie would still be extremely difficult. I think they were planning on making the next 2 books, but after seeing those seasons, I'm like, there's no way.
No.
There's no way you're going to be able to do that.
Season 2 is so dense. There's no way you can
Every
fit that.
frame is so much going on. It's so dense, yeah.
Yeah, there's no way you could fit all of that in an hour and a half, 2-hour movie. You cannot do that
It'd
without
have
cutting.
to be like split into 2 parts.
Yeah.
Each part would have to be like 3 hours long.
Oh, for
maybe.
sure.
If there's any positives from that Avatar movie, I think the production design was really good. I think the costumes and the designs of the ships and everything were very on point. And I think the VFX themselves, not the way that the bending looks, like how they're doing it, but the VFX themselves, the water, the earth, the fire effects, all look really good and they still hold up very well.
The effects are decent.
Yeah, the effects are decent. That movie's so off. I actually rewatched it recently, and it is just unbelievably horrible. I don't know if Shyamalan was sleepwalking through it or if they got an AI to write that. But it just so terrible.
Yeah, it's like now you have a newfound, what's like the opposite of appreciation.
Yeah, newfound hate, disrespect.
It's like, wow,
for it.
now that I see what's going off of, wow, this is even more horrible than I thought.
It's like a shadow of what the
oh yeah, I was gonna
is.
say a skeleton, but I was like, not even. It's like
it's not even. It's
the
like
ghost of a skeleton.
It's like the shadow of a ghost of a skeleton of a pinprick.
Yeah.
Of a thought, of a singularity. It's like, it's the same, it's not even the same in name only because it doesn't even have the full name. I don't even know what it is. But this show did it great.
Yeah.
And I think trying to readapt it, because they want to keep it going, they want to keep the cash flow going, but I think trying to constantly readapt it, I think the only thing they should even try to do, I know it would take an extraordinary amount of effort and you basically have to reanimate the entire show, but making it widescreen and in HD would, I think, benefit it a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So
that's all I really have to say about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully Korra is, I don't know, I keep hearing it's not good. I hear it's bad.
Yeah, we'll see how it is. Maybe we'll do a video once that's done too. That's 4 seasons of like 12-ish episodes each.
So. So it's like about the same or just short of this one?
It's like just short, I think.
It's like 48 episodes. This one has
60-something, yeah. Yeah, we'll see what you think of Korra later on. So yeah, that's all for me. Hopefully this video will be the start of a new era for my channel. Hopefully I can actually start making stuff. And thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Okay. See ya.